Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And Mike, we have a very special announcement to start off the show with. Our CTV app for the station is officially live. So you can download it on your Roku device, on your Amazon Fire Stick. And you know what? You can watch Ask Mike on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. before it drops on YouTube. How cool is that?
It's good.
There you go. See, that's good. That's all we get from Mike. That's good. There you go. So go download it right now. Hey, maybe if we get people to download it and they show us that they downloaded it, we can maybe give away like a special Ask Mike prize or something.
I don't think we would, but somebody might.
Somebody might. Hey, go download it. Well, we might have some fun stuff in store for you guys if you do that. Anyways, let's get into it, Mike, because the Hogs headed to a super regional, and our questions are pretty much all focused on that. The first question this week is from Cajun Hog, who asks, are you surprised that Arkansas not only finally won its own regional, but there wasn't a lot of drama to it? I was worried going in, but the Hogs surprised me. What surprised you?
I think the biggest surprise to me was Kansas, because when we talked about this last week, I thought, okay, they're the team most likely maybe that could pull off an upset. They didn't even play them. They went 2 and out.
Yeah.
They just, boom. Now, I don't know if we mentioned this last week. I sort of recall maybe saying something. I've got some people that, well, one guy in particular that covered the Big 12 in baseball this year. And he told me it was down.
We did talk about that because we have a guy who, we have a Kansas fan who works in this station. Yeah. And they said to me earlier last week, I said, oh, Kansas. They said, no. What, we're going to lose to Creighton. That's what they told me. I said, wow.
Well, they did.
Okay, there you go.
And they also lost to North Dakota State. So that was the first big surprise. I think the second surprise was North Dakota State, because we talked about they had played all this tough schedule.
Yeah.
They had a pretty good record on the road. But overall, most of the good, I don't know that they beat any ranked teams. They played them and got beat and swept and whatever.
But they were close against some of them.
I didn't see them probably as being as good as they probably are, because the truth is they came closer to beating Arkansas than anybody. And now it still wasn't close. It was, what, a 4-run game, something like that.
6-2 was the final.
But closer than anybody else. So they surprised me, I think. I wasn't surprised that Arkansas won this regional. I said they would win it. I thought they would win it. I thought maybe it was tough, but then when I started looking at some of the other regionals, I went, hey, that may be a little tougher. In other words, we're used to sitting up here and complaining about Arkansas getting the shaft, you know, by the selection committee. This time, I don't think they did that. I don't think it was an easy regional by any means. And some of what Arkansas did, maybe a lot of it, was just they were confident. They came together and they played well. They did what they needed to do. But the regional itself, the outcome, the eventual outcome did not surprise me. Just Kansas, I thought they would perform better. North Dakota State probably didn't give them enough respect. And here's the other thing, Creighton. Creighton surprised me, and this is why. It's why you can't look at stats. 50-something home runs on the year. That's not a home run hitting team. 370 batting average, that's not up there. But if you go back and break it down and look at their game by game, they had something like, where did I put this? 16 games this year where they scored double-digit runs.
Wow. With
a team that doesn't hit a lot of home runs. Now, they got, I think, 3 guys that are all around 8, 9 home runs. But the rest of the lineup, and then the batting average is not. But how do you score double-digit that many times and not be pretty fearsome? And the impression I got, not from watching them play Arkansas, but watching them in those other 2 games, is they can explode at any minute.
Yeah.
The 2 games that they played they scored 4 runs in 2 games against Arkansas. Okay, 4.
Yeah.
That's 2 runs a game.
Yeah.
They scored 22 in the other 2 games, 22 combined runs. So I'm looking at them and I'm going, wow, these guys are pretty good. They're pretty fearsome. They almost remind me of Kentucky in that you never know when somebody's going to unload one on you. And they did against Gage Wood in that one game, the final game. But they never really did to Arkansas what they did to the other teams. And I guess what I'm getting at here is I think the regional was actually pretty tough, tougher than I thought it would be, except for Kansas. I think North Dakota State's pretty good, and I think Creighton is a good team.
Yeah.
I think if they'd been in another regional, they might have pulled off an upset there.
Well,
So I don't know. That's how I look at it.
well, it's kind of crazy because, and we're going to get into it here about what, some of the other regionals and what the craziness of college baseball this past weekend. But it's kind of weird to think, with all the craziness that has gone on, that Arkansas really did get through okay. Yeah, they're kind of drama-free.
Yeah, when you look about the complaints about last week and what they did in the SEC tournament and all that stuff, man, that's just all gone now.
I don't know where are the people who are like, fire Dave Van Horn? Where are they at?
I think they want to fire Schlossnagel. I think they want to fire Tim Corbett.
Exactly.
Corbin.
I mean, come on. We're going to get into it a little bit about, Vanderbilt and all the other SEC teams that went down this past weekend. But Popular Porkster says, I'm used to us getting no respect from the baseball media, but all I heard last week was how Arkansas was the most complete team with the best chance to win the College World Series. Vegas even has them as the favorite right now to win it. After this weekend, it looks like they were right. Wow, we're the top seed left.
Yeah, and then there's another one the same.
Oh, sorry, yeah, and Razor Alex 88 with pretty much the same reaction. He says, it's been a wild weekend in regional play. Vandy goes bye-bye. Texas goes bye-bye. Little Rock forces a Game 7 against LSU. How about those Trojans, right? Let's give them a clap. They deserve one on Ask Mike. And, of course, we are looking red hot, going perfect, rolling into supers. Whoop, whoop.
I mean, you really got to stop and think about this. Okay. Vanderbilt wins the SEC tournament, and the committee goes nuts and makes them the #1 national seed. They're gone. They become the first #1 national seed that didn't even play in its championship of its region. They didn't even make it to the final game.
Oh, that's
they were gone.
Stat.
They were gone before that happened.
Oh my God.
Oh, now here's Texas, #2 national seed. What did Schlossnagel say? He said, winning the SEC, because he was playing up the fact that we won the SEC in our first. Winning the SEC may be harder than winning the College World Series. Apparently, winning the SEC is harder than winning your own regional. They won the SEC, but they couldn't win their own regional.
It is just wild to think about.
It's crazy what went on there. Now, I want everybody to think about this. Vanderbilt is gone, the top seed. Texas is gone, the 2 seed. Arkansas is the top remaining seed left. As we do this show, and we're doing it Monday afternoon, only 5 of the 16 national seeds have advanced as of right now.
Okay.
Only 5.
Only 5, yeah.
5 are already out completely. 5 of the national seeds are already out. That's a big number. Yeah. And 6 have to win today or they're gone.
Oh my goodness.
By the time the day's over, you could have way more than half the national seeds gone. Now let's look at the SEC. Right now, Arkansas and Auburn are the only SEC teams that advanced. Vanderbilt, Texas, and Georgia are gone. LSU, Ole Miss, and Tennessee must win today or they're gone.
Oh, and you also had other ones. Alabama, gone. Florida, done. I mean...
Those were the seeds, though, the national.
Oh, I know. I was just adding in more SEC teams.
I remember talking last week and talking about the fact that if Arkansas got to Omaha, they might end up with 5 SEC teams in their bracket, and they might end up with 5 in the other bracket, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, there's only 2 that even, that we know for sure could happen.
Yeah.
It might. So Arkansas might get to Omaha and they'd be the only SEC team in their bracket. And it could be the only other one is Auburn on the other side of the bracket.
Could be.
Now, all of that could change based on what happens in some of these games tonight. But again, when you start looking at how this thing evolved and how people are mad about certain things. Oh, you went 1 and out in the SEC tournament and lost to Ole Miss. Yeah, Ole Miss fighting for their lives. They got a regional, But what are they going to do with it? Maybe they'll survive. Maybe they'll survive to the Super. We know, because we've experienced it, what it's like to host a regional and then sit there and pick your nose
Sit there and pick your nose, yeah.
while somebody else plays the championship.
Yes, yeah.
While maybe they come in and go play another regional somewhere else because you don't have the Super anymore. So it's just, baseball is so strange. The other sports are unpredictable, basketball, football, or whatever, but baseball is easily the most unpredictable.
Yeah, everything can change with one pitch. I mean, seriously. And that's what Dave Van Horn was saying last night. He said, I tell my guys that all the time. In baseball, things can change like that. But that's why he said we've been on the other side of it. Feels really good to be on this side, right? It feels really good to be making it to a super regional. But we've been on the other side of it. So we know how that feels too. But I laugh at people on the internet that go on and say things like, oh, Arkansas, they're the favorite to win the College World Series. They're not even going to make it out of their regional. Where are you guys at right now? Where are you
Well,
guys
they
at?
vanish.
Yeah, they're gone. Poof. Can't find them anymore. Can't even find those tweets anymore. Anyways, we got more questions coming up for you because Eddie Lynn asked, did you catch that exchange between Van Horn and Creighton's coach after the game? The guy's retiring, and Van Horn said something like, good luck on your retirement. I may not be too far behind you. Wow. Hopefully he was joking.
I think it was a little bit of both. I think he probably was kind of joking about that, like it's not going to happen immediately. But he's 64 years old. He's about 70, 75 wins away from 1,000 at Arkansas. I think he'd like to get 1,000.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you look at those numbers.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's hard to say. There's so many things that, first of all, what if this is the year and they win it all? Would he then go, okay, I finally did it, I'm not going to push my luck, I'm out? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't think he's just going to toss it up because he won one.
But there are other factors in play. For instance, baseball, if this revenue sharing thing comes down, and we're now in June, it was supposed to happen sometime in June. I'm sitting here waiting like Jeopardy.
Well, it was supposed to happen in April,
No,
then it was supposed to happen in May,
but
and now it's supposed to happen in June.
Well, they've been saying June for a while now. But I feel like the Jeopardy song is playing ding, ding, ding,
No, they're
ding,
gonna.
ding,
You know they're
ding.
gonna keep pushing it back. It's the government.
Well, whatever. But if that goes into play or in place, you then go to 40 guys on a baseball roster. That's difficult with all the pitching arms you need. So how's he going to respond to that? Now, that's the bad news. The good news is scholarships.
More scholarships,
You're going to go from 11.7 to 30 scholarships, which will help with the NIL money and revenue sharing and all that. Just getting a scholarship, even if you don't get much revenue sharing money, baseball players are kind of used to that. They're a different breed. They're looking more at things like, hey, I can go to minor league baseball next year, or I can do this or that.
I won't say who said this, but I heard a story one time about one of the baseball players. It was a few years back. One of them, or when NIL first started, so a few years back now. And they were going, oh, NIL, hey, this guy owes me my NIL payment. They go, oh, how much is he paying you? He said, it's $50. He owes me $50. That's the money we're talking about here for some of these baseball players.
I mean, just getting a scholarship where before there's going from 11.7 to 30, that's a lot of guys. So maybe Van Horn would like that. Maybe he would find it favorable. I don't know. All I'm saying is there are some things that could change the sport a little bit, which might affect his attitude. When you get to his age, and if people start changing things on you, and you're going, wait a minute, this is not how I did this stuff, then I think there's more of a tendency to want to retire. But I see him being around 2 or 3 more years at least.
And there's also, when you say some of those things, when you're in an exchange like that, sometimes you say those things, right? And you're not putting an exact time on it, but you're saying that to be nice and talk to.
Well, I mean, the guy said something back to him like, but not soon or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It was a cute exchange. So I wouldn't look too far into it, although I, like many people on the internet, heard that and went, no, No, Dave, no.
What are you saying?
No, don't say that, Dave. No.
Now, see, if Creighton had won and he said that, everybody'd be going, okay, he's leaving. This is how this stuff changes, depending on whether you win or you lose.
Again, those people have gone poof. I don't know where they are
They'll
anymore.
be back. I promise you they'll be back.
If they lose in the Supers, they'll be back. I guarantee you.
We went through this before.
Gosh, they could make it to the College World Series.
When they swept Texas, we got that question. And where are all these people? And I said, you just wait. They'll be back. And it took as far as losing a series to LSU for them to be back.
Well, speaking of being back, we're going to be right back after this short break. So stay with us. We got more questions coming your way. Welcome back to another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, we're just talking about that regional this past weekend here in Fayetteville and Arkansas getting to the Supers. Hill Country Hogs says the early exit from Hoover really helped our pitching in the regional. Most of the guys got an extra week's rest and it really showed. Just another reason why the SEC tournament is pointless. Do you agree?
Well, I don't agree that the SEC tournament is pointless. It's pointless if you've done what Arkansas did. I mean, that's the attitude that Dave Van Horn has always had over the years. We don't have to win this. You know, now it's different. You go and it's 1 and out. And in this particular case, I think they probably, if you'd ask him at the time, he still probably wanted to win at least one game there. Didn't want to just leave like he did.
And keep the arms a little fresh.
I think it probably helped Arkansas's overall pitching. I don't know that it did anything for Zach Root because Zach Root pitched in that game and he went longer in the regional than he did in the SEC tournament.
Right.
Lasted longer.
I feel like
it seemed like to me he was more motivated.
That's what I'm saying. Or just he kept fresh. He was, he just was kept fresh.
I do think it helped Gage Wood because the goal all along was to somehow get him from 60 pitches up because he'd been going about 4 innings and going about 60 pitches and then he was gone. And it looked like for a while that's what was going to happen here because he got to the 4th. Remember, he got that strikeout, which would have ended the inning, and he kind of started to walk off, and then he didn't get the call, and he came back, and all of a sudden he gives up a kind of a weak base hit, and then he hit a guy. So suddenly there's 2. Now, when that happened, I'm sitting there saying to myself, get him out. Get him out.
You said that on our Pig Trail show at 9:30.
That's right. We were talking about it when it was still happening.
Yep.
And I think Evan agreed with me.
He did. He was also upset with you. He said, I know Mike agrees with me. He said, I'm about to get on this show and rant for a little bit.
Because that's where Gage Wood had been. When he would get to about 60 pitches, that's when he would have a problem. So, but he does finally get that last out. And then what happens? I can't believe it. Dave Van Horn brings him out again in the 5th. He records 3 straight outs. They just 3 up and 3 down. And then in the 6th, he struck out the side. So he goes those extra 2 innings, and he goes from 60 to 89 pitches. Now what has he accomplished? For Dave Van Horn, he's shown Dave Van Horn, shown himself, I don't have to be limited anymore. Yes, I had this injury. Yes, they were treating me with kid gloves. But now I've proven I can go 90 pitches.
Yeah.
And yeah, I gave up that 1 home run. I had that 1 bad inning, but other than that, I had 13 strikeouts. I didn't walk anybody.
And I can rebound from that. It didn't get in my head.
It didn't get in his head.
I came back out and I did my job.
And so, and then Gage Gacko comes in, and I'm thinking now, I think at the time I was thinking, hey, Gacko's proven he can go 6 innings. You don't have to go but 4. What, he can go 5 or 6 innings. Well, Gacko was good for about 3 innings, and then remember he suddenly gave up in the top of the 9th 2 straight hits, and I'm thinking, whoa, maybe you got to pull him because if you don't, something could happen here. And then he comes back and gets that last strikeout. Okay, what happens if he'd had to come in the 4th instead of the 6th, instead of working the 7th, 8th, and 9th? So there's a value in what just happened there with Gage Wood. As far as the rest of the guys getting rest, I mean, I don't know. They just all pitched well. The only guy that didn't pitch well was Jimenez.
Yeah.
and he's still struggling. I don't know why. I'm not sure what's going on with the guy. He had great control and hardly walked anybody earlier in the year, and he still struggled, but he didn't do that much damage. I think they scored 3 runs on him, right? Was it 3 or 2?
Yeah, it was 2. It was 2 runs.
Okay,
yeah.
2 runs. So didn't blow up on him. So overall, maybe the rest helped. The point is you don't have rest now, except they didn't have to use a lot of these relievers because of the way the regional went. So I think they're in good shape for the Super Regional. I don't know about the College World Series. That's when you really have to have all your pitching.
Yeah.
But the main thing that I felt like going into this regional, and if you're going to go anywhere in postseason, this team had been up and down in terms of one week the pitching's good, the next week the hitting's good, but the pitching's not, and it just seemed to go back and forth. And games that they won, they had both, but a lot of times when you looked at the losses, something was missing. Oh, you just had bad pitching. Oh, you didn't hit well. And I've said all along, they've somehow got to bring it together for the postseason, because you've got to have both. And at least for now, it looks like it's there.
At least for now, and then you hope for Supers it continues, because I know this team would like to get to the College World Series. Hog Redneck asks, did the Game 2 blowout surprise you? I was worried about Creighton's batters after they lit up Kansas's pitchers. Root was on top of his game again, and that freshman reliever, where did he come from? I'd never heard of him.
Okay, his name is Steele Eaves. He's a true freshman from Lone Oak. He was the MVP of his high school state championship game. It was the only state championship game they've ever won, so he's a big hero there. In high school, he was 10-1 as a senior with a 1.12 ERA. Now, he's only gone, even after his appearance the other day, he's only gone 9 2/3 innings. But he's got the second best ERA on the team. I think it's like 1.86, something like that. I went back and looked game to game. I think the 2 early games that he pitched, Grambling and Portland, he was a little shaky, but not terrible. But since then, he's just been about perfect. You really look at him and you think maybe they should have used him more. And I'm not sure, because no one's asked, because it didn't come up.
Yeah.
Now I think maybe it will. But you got to believe that next year you're going to know who this guy is.
It's funny that Hog Redneck mentioned him, because I think he wears number 13, if I'm not incorrect on that. Is it number 13? There was a girl, did you watch it? You were in this block for the Pig Trail show at 10:30 last night of our show. There was a girl who came and joined me. I think her name was Olivia, and I asked her who her favorite player was, and she went number 13. And I went, who wears number 13? Who wears number? I'm trying to think, because I'm going, I don't want to ask her on air, who is that? I'm going, who wears number 13? Then I realized it was Steele Eaves. So I'm going to remember him, that's for sure, because Olivia said that's my favorite
Hopefully
player.
people won't be asking that question anymore.
No, but I didn't have the roster memorized in my head, and I went, who is that? Who is number 13? Who am I missing here? So there you go, Steele Eaves, if you wanted to know that. T.L. Slayton says, I sure hope Van Horn drops the idea of starting Jimenez in the Super Regional. His control has gone south lately. He's been good for just about 1 inning. Make him a spot reliever, Mike.
Well, what are you going to do with that? I mean, because who do you start there? To me, Van Horn will either keep doing that, or you could put Vital Shees back in. You could put him back in. It's the same issue with both of them. Either one of them, they're good for about an inning or two. I think the key may be to figure out which one of those you want to start, and then just make sure you don't leave them in too long. Pull them quickly if you need to, and then go to your bullpen in that game, because they've got plenty of bullpen available.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there'll be a change there. If there is, I think it'll go back to who he originally started.
Yeah.
Now, we could get a big surprise. I mean, he may announce in the middle of the week, oh, no, we've got this new starter for game 2. We're going to do this.
I mean, I don't know. I agree with you there. It's kind of.
I mean, he could move Gage Wood back into the second game rotation too, and then that would be whoever starts that game out to the third game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe do Zach and Gage, and then just leave it up to like a Landon, or maybe Aiden starts that third game.
Sure.
I don't know. That's a good question, though. I mean, it's not a terrible suggestion, but I don't know what you do, S. Giles says, I was telling my husband about how Aloy always strikes out with 2 or 3 on base because he's swinging for the fences. Just as I said that, he hit the first of 2 homers, not 1, but 2 homers against Creighton. Should I keep that up?
Well, if you're asking me, I would say absolutely, because I do that all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that happens to me, where as soon as I go negative, it turns positive. I mean, you guys know that. I do that on purpose around here.
All the time. All the time.
I mean, he stinks, and then all of a sudden he doesn't stink. Whoever
you've done that about
whoever he is.
quite a few
So
guys.
yes, I would think that would be a good suggestion. However, Aloy had been struggling a little bit. I thought he had a good regional. I really did. I thought he really responded well. Not just that he had the 5 RBI in that one game and the 2 home runs. He was hitting well. Game 3, remember, we've forgotten this, but Creighton their head coach made this really strange decision to start their closer.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yes. Oh, my gosh,
And
yes.
I'm sitting there thinking, that may work, except that I seem to recall him appearing in other games in the regional, and then he had pitched that right before that and had closed out 1 inning, went about 15 or 16 pitches. So I'm thinking, well, it probably will work for a couple of innings, and then we'll see. But I'm thinking they really need to do something right off the bat. And what happened? Vahiva Aloy got up and remember that base hit he got? Yeah. He struck the first guy out, I think, and then Aloy just went bam and sent it right down the left field line, and then he ended up scoring on the 2-run home run. Yeah. And they made a mistake. Their head coach made a mistake because he left him in for 60 pitches. And they hit a home run off of him in each inning. And by the time it was all over, they were in deep, at that time, they were in a hole.
Yeah.
Now, they got back in it a little bit, but I think that was a mistake. That's the other guy doing something the other coach doing something that you're going, he had never started a game, and you're going to go 60 pitches with this guy after he'd already pitched earlier in the day?
They were trying to make it work. They were trying to make it work, Mike.
It turned out to be a mistake. But Aloy did that, and I think that hit was critical because it was in the first inning. He was the second batter, I think, and it was really important. And then you had your own encounter with some Aloy fans.
Oh yeah, and we talk about how Aloy has been getting out of that slump, right, and had a really good regional. I think maybe we need to get the Hawaiian baseball team back here. We need to get those guys. So if you don't know the story, you might have seen it on social media, and you can go to our social media to see it. But we saw that there were all these young guys who were wearing Aloy shirts and wearing Bash Brother hats, and you're going, okay, they must know the Aloys, right? They must know them. And so I walked up and I said, who are you guys? And they said, well, I walked up to the coach coincidentally, and he said, well, actually, I coached both Vahiva and Kuhio. I was their youth baseball coach. And I went to the Texas series, and I said, what an amazing experience this is here at Baum-Walker Stadium. What an idea it would be to bring some of the guys I'm coaching currently from Hawaii.
Where do you get the money for that?
Hold on, they had some help. There were people who helped them out, but they said, if we could make this happen, how cool would that be? And so they did. They brought 16 of their players to Fayetteville to support the Aloy brothers and show them hard work. This is what the hard work will get you, right? This is why we're hard on you in practice. This is why we're hard on you in games. Because if you work really hard, you can get here to Baum-Walker Stadium and play, in front of all these fans. They sat out in the hog pen. They loved it. And I'll tell you this, I'm going to give them some love. Because last night we were at the stadium, Mike. I don't think we left. It must have been midnight, close to midnight when we were leaving. And I called over the coach and I said, is that your team cleaning up? And I said, yeah, is that your team cleaning up? He said, yeah, that's my team's here cleaning up. I said, oh, is that, is that what you guys wanted to do because maybe they gave you the tickets or, was that a trade-off or something? He goes, no, that's our culture. We help out and we want to be some of the last people to leave because we enjoyed ourselves here this weekend, and multiple hands make light work. That's our culture. And I just love that. And then Vahiva and Kuhio came out to go see them all. I just love that. That was, I'm giving them some love here because they are some great.
And so this could help future recruiting, right?
What, with
in Hawaii, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I asked him, I said, do you got any future Vahivas and Kuhios on your team right now? He goes, there might be some. We're going to take a short break, but we're going to be right back after these messages. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, we're going to switch gears a little bit to talking about our favorite people in the world, ESPN, and their announcers, right? Mousetown.
Gripey Mousetown. I like Mousetown. He's gripier than I am.
Oh, he's madder than you are. He must be, is he older?
No.
Oh, young griper? All right.
Well, he's not. There aren't too many people older than me.
Oh, that's true. All right, never mind. All right, younger than you, I guess. All right, Mousetown wants to know, did these ESPN Plus announcers ever do any serious homework before the games? They keep repeating the same talking points over and over. Also, they way overhype us and make me nervous. Good thing the players can't hear them. It's rat poison.
Well, the rat poison theory didn't work. Because they did. What little I listened to them, they were repeating the same stuff. Everybody's great. Arkansas is awesome. Vahiva Aloy is a surefire first-round draft pick, going to be a great major leaguer. I mean, we don't know any of that stuff yet, but they were playing it up. This is why I turn the sound down. It drives me crazy. Now, it's not just that. Mostly what it is announcers not talking about what's going on with the game. If it's a blowout, if a team's up by 8 runs or something, I can understand them wanting to kind of switch away from because not much is happening anyway. But I mean, I will watch games where it's a 1-run game, maybe 5th inning, 2 on, 2 out. And the game could change on what happens. And they're sitting there jabbering about some story, and either the guy strikes out or he gets a base hit and drives in a run or something, and it's changed the game, and it's like, oh, we got to suddenly react to something. They don't build up the suspense and drama of what's actually happening in front of them. They're too busy talking about some story a guy wants to tell about what happened to him 3 years ago. And if they do that enough, I'll just turn it off because I don't want to hear it. I've said this before. When you go to a game, you're going to the game to watch that. You're not going to a game so a guy can tell you that story. You know, I don't know what they think people want to do. So yeah, I agree with Mousetown. And there's a simple way to handle that. You just turn the sound down.
Yeah, you do. A lot of people have told me they turn the sound down and they listen to Phil and Bubba.
Well, that's difficult because there's usually a delay.
There is, but some people have said we can start, you can line it up. You can line it.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, you got to pause your TV on YouTube TV. I'll show you how to do it.
I would love to do that.
I can show you how to do it. I'll show you how to do that. You know what I don't like, and this goes back to Mousetown's question. I don't like when ESPN Plus announcers don't do enough homework before the game. Some are really good and do their homework and get everything. But do you remember, was it in the Super Regionals for softball or was it in the Regionals? I think it was the Regionals for softball this year. The ESPN announcers had no idea what the beer hats were.
Yeah.
No idea. And kept saying, oh, they're putting on these weird hats. They're putting on these strange, what are those? What do they look like? Like, they had no idea.
Yeah, before you do that, you should ask somebody that's around you.
That's what I'm saying. But usually a lot of them have the night before where they'll actually go and sit down, and they'll sit down with Coach Deifel, and they'll sit down, or Dave Van Horn, or Vahiva Aloy, and a few of the players, and they'll ask them a bunch of questions and get all of their stories down and all those, when they talk about little stories during the game and things like that, that's where they get that from their research. But you would think somebody would be like, hey, what are the beer hats for? And when do you do that? And when did that come about,
Well, it's always a good idea to have somebody in that room, that announcing booth, who's very familiar with the team, not only to tell you oh, this guy did this, because they'll do it off to the side in between innings or whatever. He's this, and they'll give you little tidbits. But they can step in a situation like that if you're not sure what to be. You know, you go to a commercial break and you ask the guy, what's one of those hats for?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
he can explain it to you.
Exactly. Or it's why it's good to have people who have called a lot of games here or done a lot of games here. You know, we were asking the other day, we didn't know where Troy Eklund was for, you know, where he was sent for the regional. We didn't know, but it's having people there who know your program and
I'm not sure why they do that, why they don't take Arkansas's people who've done the streaming all along and stream them somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Go stream off over here. I don't know.
I don't get that either, because those people are going to know the program the best and be able to give you the best. Anyways, we could go on and on about ESPN and some of the crazy decisions that go on. WV Hog fan asks, what are your thoughts on the seeding process for this year's football playoffs and the proposed 16-team playoff with the Big Ten and SEC getting 4 automatic teams each, Mike?
Okay, I've said for years that I want 16 teams. I'd like 32. I love the playoffs.
Go big.
I mean, I think they ought to get rid of the SEC conference championship games. I don't see any point to that. They say it makes money, but you can make money by having more playoff games. So I like the 16. And honestly, if you're talking about there are 4 major conferences and you've got 16 teams, there's nothing wrong with the 2 best conferences, in my opinion, getting a guarantee of 4 each, which would be a total of 8. That's half the field. That still leaves 8 bids for everybody else. Now, what would you do with the Big 12 and the ACC? Well, you're not going to give them 4 each. So what if you gave, how about you just flexible? There's not a rule of thumb on there, but maybe you just say your champion automatically gets in of those 2 conferences. And then that would cut that down, you know, from 8 to 6, and you'd still have 6 bids that you could award based on how good rankings and how a team did. Now, if you're going to have automatic bids, I think you do have to have seeding, because you can't just stick somebody in there automatically and say, well, yeah, you're part of this conference, and therefore you're seated higher than these people. So I favor the seeding as well. The problem is, who does the seeding?
And getting it right.
Getting it right is the issue, not the fact that you're doing it, but getting it right. And I don't know how you correct that. To me, you got to get people that, I would think you could go in there with them and look at the process that they, maybe get a guy to do research, just sit in on all these selection committees in the various sports and make note of what they do and how they come to certain decisions, and then write a research paper on it and say, this didn't make sense, this did, don't do this, and come up with some rules,
I actually think that would be
some
really
ways of doing this where you're not just going, okay, I want to go eat a sandwich. You know, I don't know what they do in there.
But that's what I'm saying. I think that'd be very interesting. I'd like to sit in some of those meetings.
Why was Tennessee a 14 seed? They didn't deserve to be a 14 seed. Now that they're struggling, they may not make it out of the 14 regional. Maybe, but on paper, they did not. They should have been the 11 seed. We talked about it last week.
Should Vanderbilt have been the number 1 seed?
No, in my opinion, no.
Right,
they went from being ranked 9th in the country to being the number 1 overall seed because they won the conference tournament. That, to me, is putting too much emphasis on the conference tournament. So again, the way they do this stuff is a little weird. I'm for seeding. I just think they should do it. Should be better at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's half of the reason why people are opposed to expanding the playoffs, right? Because they're like, oh gosh, the seedings are going to be, you're going to get matchups that shouldn't exist and then lopsided games and things like that. Yeah. So if you can get the seedings right, that's where this would thrive. But
and again, the 16 teams is great to me.
I do love
because look,
more.
The more teams you take out of the end of the year, you got fans. I'm a fan of a certain team. Oh, we never make the playoffs because there's only taking 2 teams out of the SEC or this or that.
Yeah.
It used to be just 1.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, come on, you know. You got to give people hope. And if you include more people in it, I mean, that's what the NCAA basketball tournament has always done. They're talking about getting that up to 70 or 75 teams.
Yeah, they want to expand that.
And people are saying, no, no, no. And I'm going, why not? Let more people in.
Yeah, I think with basketball, there's just so many teams, and I do like where basketball is at right now. But that's always been the argument for football, is that you give more playoff spots and you have more hope for teams to go, well, maybe we can be in it.
And you have better chance for upsets. It all becomes more interesting. I mean,
If
you don't
the
want it to be
done
if the
correctly,
seeding's done
if
correctly.
the seeding's done correctly, you have more chance for upsets. Because if it's done incorrectly, some matchups could be a little scary. But anyways, we're going to take another short break. It's our final one of the show. When we get back, we are going to talk about football game times, which came out last week as well. We're going to talk a little bit about softball and basketball as well. We got KY Hog. He's asking another question, isn't he? All right, we're going to be right back after these messages. Welcome back to this week's Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, Hop Hog has a pretty good question here. Everybody always asks this all the time because they all want to know, and Hop Hog does too, who picks the times for football games that are streamed? Why would anyone think playing day games in August or early September in Arkansas is a good idea for attendees and player safety? And this is because a lot of people are mad, Mike, over the Arkansas State game being at 4 o'clock at War Memorial Stadium.
Okay, look, this streaming for SEC football games is relatively new. For a long time, what we had was your SEC games are going to be on ESPN, ESPN3, ESPN, not 3, ESPN News, ESPN there's another one, and then there was an alternative thing and all that.
ESPNU, all that.
But they weren't streamed. It was conventional TV. And when you have so many games that you have to get up, play in the course of a normal day, I mean, you can't start games at 6 o'clock in the morning. The earliest they would start them is 11, and then you're going till around 8 o'clock at night. Everybody can't have the prime spot. So they're moving games around. Now where ESPN comes in is there's no question. What they do is look at what are the games that are most likely to be watched.
Yeah.
And they're going to put the better teams, the teams that will draw the bigger audience in your prime time part of the day. So we've explained before, that's why Arkansas, when their football program wasn't very good and struggling, they ended up with a lot of 11 a.m. games. And there are other teams like that do that. So the reason you got these playing these day games, say the first, and usually you get like some games sometimes played the last week of August, first week of September. It varies according to the calendar. But usually it's those first 2 weeks of the football season where it's really hot and muggy.
Yeah.
And if you are unlucky enough to get one of these 1 p.m. start times, 11 a.m. start times, or whatever, even sometimes 2:30, the way the different networks do this, it can be very hot, very unpleasant. I think the coaches now, he mentioned some stuff about player safety. Look, they've figured this out. Coaches have dealt with this enough that they've got all the stuff. They got the fans going. They got they're blowing cool air on them. They've got them hydrated. They're not going to have the problems that you had several years ago when
they have AC units on the sideline.
Yeah,
I always stand behind them because they cool me off.
So it's not going to affect the players so much as it affects the fans, and I get that.
Right.
Okay, that's with conventional TV. Now with streaming, I think his point, and a lot of the point that a lot of the fans are making is, wait a minute, with streaming, you got to, if you have ESPN Plus or 3 or what I have, you click on there, there's a gajillion sports.
You can stream whenever.
There's gajillion stuff on there. Yeah. So you don't have a problem with somebody running at the same time. You can have 10 football games going on at the same time. So why then, if it's a streamed game, would it ever be in a weird time? You know, in other words, the best time, if it's the first 2 weeks of the season, what he's suggesting is it should be a night game.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be, it's going to cool off by then. It's going to be better for the fans. They won't be sitting there looking at the sun, going blind if you're on the wrong side of the field.
And also, I will stick up for the fans who are upset about this. I mean, if you've been to a game at War Memorial, you know that last year or the year before that, they ran out of water. Remember that?
I remember that.
We couldn't get water, and that's incredibly dangerous for fans.
Yeah.
So I do understand the concern.
Okay. So the official answer I got was that even though it's streaming and not regular ESPN channels, ESPN still controls it.
They do.
They are the ones that decide when a game starts. Now,
Correct.
they can take into consideration the wishes of the host school. They can do that. They don't have to, but they can. Now, I'm going to give you what I think went on with this because I don't know this for sure,
Okay.
but I'm going to give you my opinion about why this was done this way. Because Sam Pittman has said this before. It's not like this hadn't come up before. He has said before he does not want to play an 8 o'clock start time game in Little Rock because he doesn't want his players getting back to Fayetteville at midnight or later.
Yeah.
And I assume that Arkansas State went along with this and pretty much had the same attitude.
Yeah.
Our players, because here's what's going to happen, and it's going to be doubly true of Arkansas State because they're going to have more in-state guys on their team. The idea has always been when you played a Little Rock game, you didn't have to go back with the team.
Okay.
You didn't have to. If you were from Little Rock and you wanted to hang around with your family or do some stuff with some people earlier in the evening, that's fine, but you needed to come back at a normal time or you needed to get yourself in bed and get up early the next day, one or the other. And I think that's what's going on here. I think he does, and I think the attitude is also if you start a game at 4 o'clock, by an hour into it, the sun has gotten down to the point where it's not going to be blinding anybody at the stadium. The heat is not going to be as bad. And you're going to get toward the end of this game, and it's going to be into the evening. It's going to be cooler. The sun may still be up, but we all know what summer games are like in late August and all that. As it gets down toward 8 o'clock, it's not too bad. And if you start a game at 4, it's probably going to be over around 8, 8:30. So I think that's why they did it that way. Now, I'm going to say one other thing about this
Okay.
to anybody that's upset about this.
Okay, all right, let's hear it.
All right. You know, I moved here 50 years ago. You know what? One of the first things I heard the summer of '75 when I first came here was reading a newspaper article. And you know what it was? It was Arkansas State fans mad because they couldn't play Arkansas. I've been listening to that for 50 years. Everybody's been talking about this. And Frank Broyles had his reasons for not doing it, and they were always making fun of him and calling him Frank, you know, you can run, you can't hide, saying all this stuff. Finally, after 50 years for me, and it's been going on longer, I'm sure, for people who lived in this state before that, they're going to play.
Yes.
The first time ever. You're going to have two teams play each other. The Curly Red Wolves, or whatever they are, what are they? The Red
Wolves.
Red
the Arkansas
Wolves.
State Red Wolves.
They're going to play the Razorbacks, right?
Where did Curly Red Wolves
I don't
come
know.
from?
There's something. Maybe that's a high school team. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
They're going to play.
Yeah.
To me, if they're going to play, I don't care if the game starts at 11 o'clock in the morning and it's 110 degrees with 80% humidity. It's a one-time ever thing. It hasn't happened ever, and it's going to happen. So just deal with it.
Mike says, get on with the time. It
I mean,
doesn't matter.
it's the game. Everybody's been talking about this game forever. Well, now they're going to play, and you're going to argue about what time it starts?
You know, Mike, there's just got to be something. You know,
Come
there's got to
on.
be something. There's got to be something. I just hope they have water. That's all I hope.
Well, after last year, I think that maybe they already
I think it was 2 years ago. I
Maybe-
can't remember if it was last year or the year before.
I don't
that,
know.
but-
I can't speak for War Memorial Stadium Commission people, the people that run the games. I don't know what happens
No,
there.
they're very nice people. I like the people who run the stadium.
They
They're
just
good people.
ran out of water.
They just ran out of water and made it, and then the toilets flooded. So that was also pretty gross. So.
I don't think they're going to put a lot of money into a place where you're playing one game a year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Anyways, we're going to move on from that because Whippersnapper has a pretty fun question here. You mentioned that softball should consider making the field bigger. I can get behind that, but what about pushing the games to 9 innings as well? Never understood why they only play 7 to begin with.
First of all, I didn't say that. Grant Hall said that. Grant Hall is a sports writer that has been covering the Razorbacks since 1969, longer than anybody. He moved here when he was 4 or 5 years old, so he's been around the Razorbacks his whole life. He's the one that said it. I didn't think about it much one way or the other. What he said was that these softball players have gotten bigger and stronger and faster and more
Yeah.
physical, and the field, the dimensions of the field, the baselines and how far it is to hit a home run and all that stuff, they've overwhelmed it. And it's made the game a little strange because there are just too many weird things can happen. It's apparently easy to steal home plate. It's just so short. You just take off running. If somebody doesn't, turns away from, the pitcher turns away from the plate for a half second, somebody's stolen the home plate on you. So he's the one that said it should be bigger. Now, I don't have a theory on that necessarily. Why has it always been 7 innings with softball? I looked that up.
Okay, I love it. Let's hear it.
Okay, do you know that softball started in like the 1880s or somewhere
Yeah, I
in
knew
there?
that. Yeah.
And it started as an indoor alternative to baseball.
Okay.
It was played indoors.
Okay.
Probably because people wanted to watch baseball, but the weather might be in the wintertime, might be during rain or anything that would disrupt a baseball. You just go indoors and play this thing called softball. And so because they were indoors, everything had to be reduced a little bit.
Yeah,
and
like
they came up with the idea of, well, if we're going to do this, it's not as good as baseball, but it is at least something. But let's don't sit in here forever because it'll get real hot and sweaty in here and we won't like it. So let's just play 7 innings.
Okay.
And everybody will get it over with and they'll go home. So that's how it got started, and it just stayed.
All right.
Now, this idea that you would go to a game and want it to be shorter, get it over with, that is very prevalent these days.
It is.
They're always trying to figure out ways to make a football game shorter, baseball game shorter. How can we make things shorter?
Yeah, even basketball. They're, let's give them in 2-hour
And
windows.
I remember some discussion a few years ago that maybe baseball should go to 7 innings. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
And I hate that idea.
I know you do. I know you do. Oh, my goodness.
So here's the point. Yes, they can do this stuff with women's softball if they want to. I doubt that they will. I think it's going to stay the way it is.
Me too.
I'm not necessarily in favor of making the games longer because I think people already don't want it to be as long as it is.
Yeah.
But here's my alternative to this.
Okay, let's
and
hear
we
it.
talked about it last week. What about giving softball players a choice? If it probably wouldn't happen in a small school, but if you're a big metropolitan city with a bunch of let's say you got 3,000 kids in your high school. What if you had a softball team and a baseball team? I'm talking women.
Yeah.
Women can play baseball.
Yeah, there are women's baseball teams out there, guys. There are. That's not a foreign concept. There's a women's baseball.
What if we had that in college too? What if a college decided we're going to have a baseball team instead of a softball team? It'll be women, but they'll be playing baseball.
Yeah, it'll just be baseball.
I'd be all over that.
Yeah,
I'd love it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. Unless again, I do think some people enjoy playing softball as well, and some women do enjoy playing softball. But
it's an individual choice. You'd have to decide what do we want.
We bring in the Ole Miss softball player, right? We talked about her last week, that she played baseball growing up and that she just recently started playing softball, but she's been a baseball player her whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are some women that I grew up with that would love the opportunity to play baseball, possibly in college and even further than that maybe, because we didn't have a softball team.
So if you have women play softball, it can be 9 innings, not 7.
Sure. Or women play baseball.
I mean, women play baseball. It could be 9 innings.
I don't hate that idea. I think that, hey, maybe it'll happen. We don't know.
Good.
Hey, it's 2025. I mean, a lot of things could happen, all right? A lot of things could happen. Maybe some things might happen with Cal's roster, and that's what we're going to get with K.O. Did you like my?
You have to understand that he deals with Kentucky fans every week.
I know he does.
And they're always going, yeah, you didn't get what you wanted. Who else are you going to get?
Well, they don't need to bother him right now. They don't need to. KY Hog, let me give you some advice. You tell those Kentucky fans to just go away. I do all the time. Trust me. They get in my mentions and they're talking to me. They're in my mentions, Mike, talking about Arkansas basketball when I'm tweeting about baseball. Why? Why?
Did you see the reaction? Because Cal played golf with John Daly and John Daly Jr. and Cal had one of his sons out there.
Brad was there.
And they lined up for a photo and they played golf together. Okay. Yes. And the Kentucky fans, they were posting things.
They're going to make me so mad.
This was even, I'm not going to say what one of them posted, but they're always going to do that.
I don't like it. All right, KY Hog, your question is, now that Carter Knox is coming back, will there be any other additions to Cal's roster, or is this it?
I mean, he's been asking, when do we know that this is it? Is he going to have to say it? Will he say it?
Probably. No, I don't think he'll say it.
So he won't say it?
No.
We'll just get into the middle of the summer and we'll know that's it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there's a rule on that.
No, I think right now there's still a lot of unknowns. I mean, there's a lot of talk that maybe there are some guys who might reclassify, right? That's the latest talk. There's some rumors that some guys might reclassify. There's some rumors that maybe there's some overseas guys, right, that they could be looking at that could be a last-minute addition or something like that. Right now, these are the guys they have. Right now, my best intel is that, yep, these are the guys we have and that we're rolling with. The other guys that might pop up would be, surprise addition, or some guy reclassified, or they pick somebody else up, maybe, like I said, an overseas guy. But right now, this is who they're rocking with.
Do you think that there's a Kentucky basketball fan living in Arkansas that sends questions to the Kentucky call-in shows about whether or not Mark Pope is going to add anybody else?
No. No. I don't think that, no.
Because no one here would be harassing them about Mark Pope's recruiting, right?
No, because honestly, I mean, I'll keep up with Mark Pope's recruiting. I'll look at what he's doing because I'm interested in it. But I don't need to call in to, what is it, Kentucky Sports Talk Radio? Right. Isn't it KY Sports Radio, whatever the one, Matt, what's his name?
I just got through looking at a thing again on my phone the other, where that, remember early in the year when there was an Arkansas fan that put these little clips of Cal, he had these press conferences, and he would say these really strange things, which we actually liked that.
Yeah, I think Cal's pretty funny.
And then it ended with Bob Holt, God rest his soul, ended up saying, he said, when are you going to ask a question? He goes, when you stop talking. Bob Holt said that to Cal. And so they were all laughing. It's really funny, ha, 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 and all that. And that's fine. But I'm thinking, why do they care about what? We know this. We've lived through this. Okay, you have. Now you're not having to live with it. So let Arkansas fans experience Cal and know what he says and have him for 4 or 5 years or however, and then we'll know what he says.
And I seem to remember a team that got to the Sweet 16 this year. Was it Kentucky? No, wait. Oh no, Arkansas did.
And they won head-to-head in Lexington, too.
They can just calm down, okay? Yeah. Calm down, all right? I'm not coming and messing with your people. Don't mess with mine, all right? Yeah. There you go.
Exactly.
That's how we're going to end the show. I bet we're going to have another question.
We don't have Razorback fans sitting around laughing at what Musselman's doing.
No one is. I've even looked at Musselman's posts, and most of the Razorback fans that are actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
People are pretty nice to Musselman. However, I think the two situations are different, though. I do think the situations are different, but.
Why are they different? Musselman jumped up and left.
Yeah, but I don't think he was pushed out by the fans.
No, he wasn't.
I don't think we were pitchforking to get Musselman out.
But wouldn't you be more angry if he just left on his own? I mean, if I'm a Kentucky fan, I sort of understand why Cal left.
Yeah.
We wanted him gone.
Yeah.
So why then would you harass him?
I don't know.
You'd be glad that he was gone.
Because it's like this situation when you're dating a girl or a guy, right?
If you want to not go out with her anymore, why would you be unhappy? Why would you harass her if she went out with somebody else?
But here's the thing. You broke up with her, right? You called the breakup. You said, we're done.
Yeah.
We're over. All right? We're never getting back together. And then it's those, I'm serious because I've seen it. I've seen girls do it. I've seen guys do it where they look up, oh, look at her. Look at her. She's doing so bad without me. And they're the ones who broke up with them.
Well, that's pitiful.
That's my real life example for you here today, Mike Irwin.
Okay.
Okay. We will see you next Monday to answer all of your questions.